All right, welcome. Today, we're going to dive into a piece of software that, for millions of us, was basically the soundtrack of the early 2000s. It was our gateway to digital music, our portal for those first downloaded videos, and, let's be honest, the canvas for some seriously mesmerizing visuals. We are talking, of course, about the rise and fall of Windows Media Player.
I mean, come on. Does this look familiar? For so many of us, this right here was the backdrop to everything. Late night study sessions, browsing the early web. It was the control panel for our entire digital media world. It really was more than just software. It was a core part of the whole PC experience.
And of course, who could ever forget the visualizations? Just staring at the screen, watching patterns like bars and waves pulse and dance in perfect sync with your favorite songs. It wasn't just some extra feature, it was like a digital campfire, something to get totally lost in while the music played. It turned just listening into this active visual thing.
Okay, so let's get official for just a second. Windows Media Player, or WMP as we all called it, was Microsoft's own homegrown application for playing pretty much any media you could throw at it. And the key thing is it wasn't just an app you decided to install. For decades, it came baked right into Windows, which made it the default choice for millions upon millions of PC users all over the world.
But how did it become that feature-packed powerhouse we all remember? Its journey from just a simple utility to a full-on digital media hub is a really fascinating story about how personal computing itself was evolving. So the story actually starts way back in 1991 with a super basic tool just called Media Player. Over time, it slowly got new powers like streaming support with something called Active Movie. But the real transformation? That happened right at the turn of the millennium. In 2000, Windows Media Player 7.0 showed up, and wow, it was a complete game changer. It brought in that slick new interface, those famous visualizations, and the ability to totally change its look with skins.
And that, my friends, brings us to its golden age. For a really solid period in the 2000s, Windows Media Player wasn't just a media player. For a huge number of people, it was the command center for their entire digital life. And it's so easy to see why, right? WMP did everything. You could rip your entire CD collection into digital files, you could burn your own custom mix CDs for the car, build and meticulously organize a huge digital library, and, crucially, sync it all to those newfangled portable MP3 players. It was a true one-stop shop. You know, this slide here maps out that whole pre-cloud workflow that we just take for granted now. This was the absolute peak of the all-in-one software idea. Before streaming, this was the cycle. You'd get a CD, you'd digitize it by ripping it, you'd organize it in your library, and then you transfer it to a portable device. Windows Media Player managed every single step of that process.
But it wasn't alone out there. WMP's biggest rival was, of course, Apple's iTunes, which was tied to the ridiculously popular iPod. Microsoft tried to fight back with its own music store and a device program they called Plays for Sure, promising that any device with that logo would work with WMP. It was a classic battle of ecosystems. Microsoft's more open but kind of fragmented approach versus Apple's closed but super seamless world.
This period of being on top, though, it came at a cost. A very, very big cost. 497 million euros, to be exact. And that was the massive fine handed down by the European Commission back in 2004. See, regulators decided that by bundling Windows Media Player directly into Windows, Microsoft was using its operating system monopoly to get an unfair advantage. Because of that, Microsoft was actually forced to offer special N versions of Windows that came without a media player pre-installed at all. That fine was a huge signal of WMP's power in the market. But even as those legal battles were raging, what ultimately led to its decline wasn't a courtroom. It was a fundamental shift in how we all consume media. And this marked the beginning of its long goodbye.
In 2009, Microsoft released Windows Media Player 12, and it was a really solid, capable piece of software that came with the much-loved Windows 7. It looked modern, it added support for new formats, and it worked great. But it would be the last major version ever released. Yeah, this quote pretty much says it all. After version 12 launched in 2009, development just stopped. It effectively froze. For more than a decade, the classic Windows Media Player got no new features, no major updates. It was just maintained, a relic frozen in time. So what happened? Well, the world changed. That whole all-in-one workflow WMP was built for, ripping, managing local files, syncing, it was being replaced by services like Spotify and YouTube. Our main media device shifted from the PC to the smartphone. And even Microsoft's own focus changed. They launched new apps, and then in 2012, an entire version of Windows for ARM devices shipped without WMP on it at all.
So where does that leave our old friend today? Well, it's still around, but in a very, very different role.
Its official name now is Windows Media Player Legacy, and that's exactly what it is. It exists as an optional feature in Windows 10 and 11. It's not the default anymore. It's not front and center. It's a piece of history that you have to actively go looking for and turn on if you want it. And hey, if you're feeling a little pang of nostalgia, you can still get it. In modern Windows, you just have to go into your settings, find optional features, and you can reinstall it with just a few clicks. The classic player, with its familiar face, can be right back on your desktop.
But for everyday use now, Microsoft recommends its new app, which is simply called Media Player. This is the official successor, and it's built from the ground up for today's world, with support for things like 4K video that the old WMP legacy was just never designed to handle. So what's the big takeaway here? The story of Windows Media Player is so much more than just nostalgia. It's the story of a massive shift in technology. It rose as the king of the all-in-one app that managed your whole media world from one place. And then, as the world moved on to the cloud and specialized services, it just faded into a fond memory. It really makes you wonder, what other classic legacy software do you miss using? What app holds a special place in your digital past?